the lobby is pinging constantly. We're now at 4 pages, which means there's well over 50 people online, which is really quite exciting. I'm not going to hold things up for much too long. Big welcome from the National Geothermal Centre, working in collaboration with the NECA, the North East Combined Authority, and host, if you like, of this DESNZ task force on geothermal energy. We have a really packed programme today. And I think without further ado, we're just a couple of minutes in. There's still people are still coming. So as Lizzie said, we've got about 10 speakers or so, some time for questions after every couple of talks. Do put your questions in the chat. We'll capture them. If we don't get round to asking them directly, then we will capture them and ask them of the speakers in good due course, and get back to you with all of you with the responses to those. So the first taxi off the rank, as it were, is Caroline Carroll. And Caroline, welcome to the task force. And can you tell us a little bit about geothermal and data centres in the next 10 minutes, please?
Absolutely. Thanks, John. It's a little bit intimidating, all these people here, but I'll give it my best shot in 10 minutes. Can you see my slides?
Yeah.
Fab.
Yep.
Thank you. I'll just crack on. A lot of you will have heard what I've been talking about. I've worked closely with a number of industry stakeholders, academics and organisations, so it won't be new to some of you. Just a little bit of context. I suppose by 2050, I mean, our energy demand is going to go through the roof. NESO model a number of different scenarios, be that, you know, electrification, hydrogen future. I think there's about 4 or 5, but all of them see demand grow rapidly. And within that demand, data centres are going to significantly increase their baseload requirements, up to potentially 7 times what they consume currently. And that by 2050, I think, is the equivalent of the entire commercial sector demand today. So it's pretty significant. And to reach, you know, net zero, clean power, we're going to have to increase our technologies, our energy storage. I think, yeah, wind, solar storage, all about 5 times what we currently have today. And nuclear is going to have to increase to potentially up to a 20 gigawatt by 2050. No easy task by any means. I don't like to diss any other technology, and I'm not, because I know that this is a massive challenge, and I know we're going to need a whole range of different technologies. But bearing in mind, all of our baseload power is currently modelled to come from nuclear, a little bit of it's BECCS, I'm not entirely sure what it stands for, but it's kind of bioenergy with carbon capture and storage, I believe. Bearing in mind, most of that baseload power is going to come from nuclear, and half of it from small modular reactors. I thought it's worth kind of comparing and trying to understand why all of the focus is on nuclear and why we have no focus at all on geothermal. I think the US comparisons are really helpful because they've invested a lot into geothermal, which I'll come back to. But when you kind of compare the capital installed costs of small modular reactors and geothermal is kind of half the price. And I think that's reflected. You can see there that they anticipate that their first SMRs are going to cost 7.5 million per megawatt. Rolls-Royce investment works out again at about 7 million per megawatt. And in the US, looking at projects in and around the Great Basin, which is where most of them are coming forward, in Nevada, Utah, those types of places, they estimate that they're only going to cost less than half of that. And similarly, that's reflected in the unit price, the levelized cost of energy. This is all out of reports from Department of Energy's EIA, which is the Energy Information Association. So pretty robust reports. And they suggest that the the projects that are going to come online in 2030, you know, again, geothermal is going to come in at half the cost of advanced, and that's advanced nuclear. That is not your early stage SMRs. And I think it's really important to understand that there's only one pressurized water reactor SMR in the world. That's in Russia, and it's only 70 megawatts, I believe. Rolls-Royce are talking about 470 megawatts. None of the in construction SMRs are anywhere near that at the moment. The biggest one is in China, and it's 170 megawatt, I believe. So I think that, you know, again, I think there's quite a lot of advances that are required, and we don't quite yet know whether they're going to meet those anticipated costs. So I think there's room for geothermal, obviously. And I think in the US, a lot of their assumptions are based on some recent advances, which I think are pretty incredible. Department of Energy have invested over 300 million, and it's kind of got cross-partisan support. So Trump is still investing into this stuff. And over the last 9 or 10 years, they've made significant advances. They're not really using anything particularly new. They are just taking technology and methodology from the oil and gas sector and focusing it in on geothermal exploration rather than oil and gas. So they've increased drilling speeds by 5 times. They drilled to, I think it's about 3.5 kilometers in 20 days. It took us 100 days in Cornwall to do that sort of depth. That means that the well cost drilling has come down significantly, so less than by about 60%. And because of the methodology and the artificial stimulation of the fractures, they've managed to boost those well outputs by 300%, which all means those levelized costs are falling, not increasing. And the Department of Energy have targeted only $45 megawatt hour by 2035. So they can see the opportunity, and they are investing. Fervo have secured, I think, $500 million in the last few years off the back of these advances. They are in partnership with Google. They've signed PPAs with a number of the big tech companies to supply data centers. So there's lots happening in the US.
Sorry, Caroline, to go through. So can you put it on slideshow mode, possibly? Just
is it not? Sorry.
No, that just make it a bit easier to see it.
I thought I'd clicked that. I don't have that option now because I've already clicked it.
Okay, well, don't worry if it's not going to...
Carry on, please, Caroline.
Yeah, just carry on.
You're seeing the slide view
Sorry.
mode, and we're seeing the
yeah, don't worry.
sorter. Yeah, carry on.
Sorry, I can send the slides out afterwards for everyone to see if they can't kind of quite see them as they are. Most of you will know this, but I think it's worth reflecting. We absolutely have the resource here in the UK, about 2 gigawatt at 4.5 kilometres. These are figures from British Geological Survey, and potentially up to 200 gigawatt at 6.5 kilometres deep, and that is equivalent to 60 Hinkley Seas, which is quite significant. We've got the expertise, we've got the supply chain with the North Sea oil and gas sector. We've had some successes, especially down here in Cornwall with our projects, but I think it's fair to say most of them are still facing quite high costs, long drilling times and modest outputs. There is a growing pipeline of projects, lots of feasibility studies undertaken, lots of interest, but I think still little supportive policy, and hence why we have limited investment flowing and a number of stalled and some abandoned projects. So I think there is a real need for, let me just check my notes, sorry, a real need for low cost baseload power. Geothermal can obviously compete with nuclear that we've got planned for 2050. We have the resource, we've got a pipeline of projects, but we have no investment and we have no supportive policy. So I think, and this is what I've been working on with the industry and a number of you for the last few months, which is now finalised. And this is a proposal to government, and it is to test and, well, it's to demonstrate the advances in the US here in the UK, so we can prove to government that it absolutely works. It is to further test innovation in our own geology, grow our supply chain and our expertise. It has a program of R&D that runs alongside it, which provides open source data to support and grow the wider sector. And hopefully it would unlock those stalled and abandoned projects. The proposal is for 2 hubs, one in the southwest and one in the northeast, where we have the best geology for power production, and it's likely to cost in the region of 250 million. I think it's an investable proposal. However, we know that investment is not flowing, so this is a 70-30 ask of government to provide us with some grant funding to demonstrate this. And our first asks are around development of a strategic outline business case, so we can further inform those conversations around where that funding might come from or that investment might come from, and alongside work with government to provide the supportive policy that the wider sector needs.
1 minute.
Am I running out of time? I'll be quick. And just very quickly, next steps. We've got about 30 plus supporters now from across the industry. We have commissioned to some support to kind of promote this. Also, we'll be working with a whole load of key stakeholders and industry, hopefully, to promote this, garner some significant MP support, hopefully, and work with government on trying to get their buy-in, I think, to work with us on development of a outline business case, and hopefully a contribution to that, with a view of hopefully securing the grant funding that we require for this 10-year programme to demonstrate the advances and actually how geothermal can play a part in those 2050 future energy scenarios.
Caroline, absolutely fantastic. You've got a couple of questions which we'll come back to in the chat later on. I'm going to move on now rapidly on to Tim Lyons from Geothermal Wales Inc. and Stephen MacDonald from Durham County Council to talk about the deep geothermal for Durham City. And you've got an extra 5 minutes between the two of you. 15 minutes starting now.
Stephen, you're on mute.
I know, I'm just trying to...
Good to hear from you. Hey, Ellie, you're on as well.
Right, okay, right.